Welcome back. We are now at Lab 4. We're going to start preparing the NSX infrastructure here. Now, we're going to go through four basic tasks here. We're going to prepare for the lab. We're going to build a transport zone. We're actually going to build two transport zones. We're going to create some IP pools or an IP pool, and then we're going to prepare our hypervisors. But before we start, let's take a quick look at the diagram from your lab guide that kind of shows what we're going to be working with. And here we see that we've highlighted with the hashed box the ESXi hosts and transport zones and IP pool, and we're just getting things ready to go. Right? That's what we're doing here. We're getting the environment ready to operate. So as we start through, right, preparing for the lab says to make sure that NSX Manager is open. Well, here we see we have our NSX Manager open and ready and waiting. If you don't, that's fine. Go ahead and open it. Remember, it's right here in the bookmark bar under the NSX bookmark folder. So we've got NSX Manager open, and now we want to go create a transport zone. Now we're in the System tab right now. This is where we need to be. We need to go under the System tab. There's our configuration header. And under configuration header, we need to find transport zones. And so let's click that. And here we see we've got a couple of transport zones predefined by NSX, right? These are built, these are out of the box. We're not going to use these. Perhaps you could if you want, but we're not going to use them here. We are going to add a new zone, and we're going to call the first zone prod overlay TZ. It's a transport zone. Pro prod. There should be a D there. We're going to have our description. Look at that. 2 text fields, 2 typos. I'm doing well so far. Traffic type, we're going to do an overlay traffic, and we're not going to do any teaming policy names here. So let's go ahead and add this. Now, we're not done. We need one more transport zone. We want to add another one. We're going to call it prod VLAN TZ. And we're going to use this. This is really the only place we're going to use this particular transport zone. This is for our edge transport nodes. So I'll go ahead and put that in the description. I like self-documenting infrastructures. Let's go ahead and select the VLAN traffic type, and we will add that. And there we have our 2 transport zones, right? Prod overlay TZ and prod VLAN TZ. Now from here, let's go ahead and deal with other prerequisites. We're going to build an IP pool. So to do this, that's actually going to be under networking. And we're going to come down here under IP management. That's our config header in the navigation. And we're going to go ahead and select an IP address pool. And we're going to build a new IP address pool. Go ahead and call that TEP IP pool. And document this. There's my TEP IP pool description, and we want to set our subnets. And in setting our subnets, now we have a choice to add. We're going to not add an IP block. We're going to add an IP range. So we'll select that, and we want to do that in the 172.20.11 subnet. Specifically, we're looking at 172.20.11.151 to 170. Right? And as we move on, I just tabbed out of that field. Notice how that turned into a configuration object right there. What CIDR is that? That's 172.20.11.0/24, not /243/24. Our gateway here, 172.20.11.10. That's the gateway IP. So it is .10. That's not a typo anywhere. It is actually 172.20.11.10. 10. Now, we're not going to add a DNS server or a DNS suffix here for tunnel endpoints. We don't need that. But we may also use IP pools for other things like service virtual machines and so on. So those might want or need DNS information. So depending on why you're creating the IP pool, you may certainly add that. It could certainly be valuable information. So we're going to go ahead and add that in here, and we'll go ahead and apply this. And now we're going to save this TEP IP pool object. Right? And there we go. We refresh that status, and it turns to a success, and that's all great. Now, we have our prerequisites for preparing our ESXi host. So let's go do that now. We're going to go over to System and come under Fabric, under Configuration, go to Nodes, and we have our host transport nodes. We want to change this Managed By field and select our vCenter server. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select our compute cluster. Right? We don't need to prepare the management cluster, but we want the compute cluster. So we'll check this box. You expand that out, you can see the hosts that are in it, but I'm not concerned about those quite yet. We're going to come up here. Only the cluster is checked. We're going to configure NSX. Now, this is a very simple dialog. You can see it right in front of us. Transport node profile. What transport node profile do I use? Well, I have none right now. So we can click this link here that says create a new one. Create a new transport node profile. And so we'll go ahead and start filling this out. ESXi, TN profile, ESXi transport node profile, if I can type. I'm just not doing so well with the typing today. So now we've got a description here. We're going to go ahead and start configuring up our host switch on this particular, or for these particular ESXi hosts. Remember, a transport node profile is going to apply to all of the hosts in this cluster. So, we want to use a distributed switch in savcsa01.vclass.local. DVS SA data center is our one distributed switch, so that's what we'll select. We're going to choose the prod overlay TZ that we just created for this NSX host switch. Because all we're going to create here are going to be overlay networks. We're not building any VLAN networks here. We'll choose an uplink profile. Here we're just going to choose the NSX default uplink host switch profile. We'll go ahead and under IP assignment use that IP pool we just created, so we have to select that. And down here under VDS uplinks, we will go ahead and choose uplinks 5 and 6. Now, that's naturally going to vary in your environment. You'll know which distributed switch uplinks you need to use here. Under advanced configuration, we will leave this mode at standard. We do not want to change that. We'll go ahead and click Add. So now we have an ESXi transport node profile that we can choose. And we can see that I even typoed the name there a little bit. It's all right. We'll keep moving. So now we see that we are applying a profile. We'll expand that a little bit. We see that the applied profile is ESXi TN profile. And as we sit and watch, let me refresh that. Now we're applying the profile and installing NSX. So we'll kind of just be patient here and wait for this process to complete. And we'll go ahead and let this do its thing, and we'll be back when it's done. All right. It's all done now. Look at that. So now we see that we have maybe we're not all entirely done. Let's go ahead and refresh the entire browser just to make sure. Sometimes that makes a difference. Um, so we saw that NSX was installed. We need to, since we refreshed everything, we'll go ahead and bring that back out. Our configuration is successful, right? NSX 4.0.1.1, one host switch. No tunnels available. We haven't created any overlay networks. We've got our tunnel endpoints. We're still waiting on our node status here. Still waiting on our node status, and it looks like everything should be okay, right? The manager connectivity should be up, controller connectivity is up, NIC status is up, tunnel status is fine. So we look at both of these, ESX2 and ESXi1. Both of these appear to be just fine. So we'll give that just another minute and see if that actually lists a node status of up. We want to make sure that that is good before we're done. Let's give this just another minute. One more good refresh. Oh, there we go. 2 hosts up. There we are. One more refresh, and we got it. Sometimes it takes a couple of those, but it should come up. Now that we have 2 prepared ESXi hosts, we'll go ahead and go back to the next lesson, and we'll see you guys in the next lab.